Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's conversation on agroecology. On this conversation, we will be focusing on land.
We cannot hear you.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the conversation on agroecology. On this conversation, we will hear about land, governance, and community power, strategies for sustainable territorial futures. My name is 𝗤𝗏𝗰𝘂𝗿𝗂, and along with my colleague 𝗦𝗏𝗰𝗴, I'm pleased to moderate this conversation. I come from the Austrian Agency for Health and Food Safety. My AGES colleague 𝗦𝗫𝗫𝗿 will be handling the technical aspects, and he is there in case you have any issues during the conversation. So please feel free to chat to Dennis in case you need anything. And agroecology, I think at this point, hopefully the partnership is already known to you. But since the beginning of the year, we've been growing. So the partnership is called Accelerating Farming Systems Transition, Agroecology Living Labs and Research Infrastructure. We now cover 31 member states, associated countries and third countries with a total of 111 partners. So it's quite a crew already. These conversations are among one of the steps to enhance agricultural knowledge and innovation systems for the agroecological transition. We aim to enhance and foster connections between living labs and research infrastructures across Europe and across different stakeholders that are participating in them. And these monthly discussions, conversations that we have will continue through the whole partnership until the end of 2033. That will further promote engagement of actors and networking. In 2026, we will focus the conversations on the 13 principles of agroecology. And today, our chosen principle is land and natural resource governance. We also have an announcement today. So today in these conversations, we would like to launch our community of practice. You will find it on the agroecology TPP communities. And this community is designed not only to keep you updated on what we are planning in the conversations, but most importantly, giving you a space to connect with the fellow colleagues, fellow members of the community of practice. And this is a place where you can exchange ideas, ask questions, and share knowledge also outside of the conversations. Through this link, you can access the group and join it by creating an account. Once you are a member, you can make a post and introduce yourself and share your ideas on what you would like to get from this community of practice. What would you like to gain? And in case you have any technical questions, you can contact 𝗬𝗬𝗰𝗴𝗵𝘁𝗀𝗏, also from AGES. She's the admin of our group. And 𝗏𝗏𝗰𝗂𝗍𝗂 is our community manager, and she will be helping you to start communicating in this group. So I hope many of you will find this group. Today, we have two presentations. The first one will be given by Eva Maria Anyango Okoth from the International Land Coalition. She will be focusing on how to secure land rights for agroecological food systems transformation, and will give us examples from the ELC network. Our second presentation will be given by 𝗦𝗫𝗫𝗏𝗫𝗏𝗫𝗏 from the International University of Andalusia, and her focus will be rural women as political subjects in Latin America. And After these two talks, you will get the chance to discuss. You will get the chance to ask questions as well. And before we begin, just a short a reminder of our conversation play rules. So first of all, so that we have a good quality of the conversation, please keep your microphones muted when not speaking, and your camera closed in case you have a bad connection. You can join the conversation after the talks by speaking up or using the chat. You can also write your questions to the chat during the talks. And we are open for everybody's opinions. So every question, comment is welcome. Just try to keep them short and simple so it will be easy for our speakers to answer. You are also welcome to share ideas, comments. This conversation will be recorded. I think you have all already clicked on OK. But in case there are some objections, you can speak up now. I see no objections. Great. We are good to go. And without further ado, I would now like to give the floor to Eva Maria Anyango Okoth. Eva Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, 𝗏𝗏, and good afternoon to everyone. I will be using slides to make my presentation. I hope everyone can see my screen. 𝗏𝗏, could you confirm on your end? All right. So as 𝗏𝗏 mentioned, I work with the International Land Coalition, which is a global coalition that brings together over 300 diverse organizations to advance people-centered land governance as a pathway to addressing the key 4 global challenges, one of them being unsustainable food systems. So we see land rights as a key factor and component in advancing transformation in the food systems agenda. And so my presentation today is really going to focus on experiences from our coalition members and national level multi-stakeholder platforms in Africa in terms of practical ways and examples of how they've been centering land rights within the broader food systems agenda and also for advancing agroecological transformation. So just to start with a broader context, we know that the global food systems are under unprecedented pressure due to climate change, land degradation, and inequality, among other crises. And so these pressures are directly affecting food security and the livelihoods of thousands of communities, specifically, and mostly the smallholder farmers across Africa and globally, who are the leading producers of food within the region and in different contexts. But we also know that as much as smallholder farmers play a key role in food supply and production, they also face a number of challenges, one of them being insecure tenure and rights over their lands and the lands that they use. And so the case we are making as ILC is that without secure tenure for farmers, we cannot be able to advance food systems transformation because this lack of tenure security in some ways affects the ability of smallholder farmers to invest in long-term ecological practices that could help achieve both benefits for the environment as well as transform the food systems. And so based on the work of our members and the national level multi-stakeholder platforms, ILC recently conducted an analysis in which we identified four agroecological and food systems transformation pathways through which our members tried to position land rights in the food systems transformation agenda. So the first one is in terms of ecosystem restoration, where many of our members and platforms are advancing the restoration of degraded land and biodiversity. We think also food sovereignty is important in terms of ensuring communities can control their food systems. There's policy transformation, which is another pathway through which our members are pushing for reforms to secure tenure security in their context, but also advance the integration of land tenure considerations within national level agroecology practices. And then finally, social justice pathway, which is around addressing inequalities and empowering marginalized communities to contribute to food systems transformation agenda. And so I will be sharing with you in the next few minutes 2 case studies in terms of some of the practices and examples of achievements that our platforms have been able to advance. So the first case study is around a specific practice that is being implemented by members of our regional level thematic platform on locally managed ecosystems. And the practice is around farmer-managed natural regeneration. So the farmer-managed natural regeneration is proven as a low-cost method of advancing land restoration that is rooted in the traditional knowledge of smallholder farmers. And the idea is that farmers use this approach to protect and manage naturally regenerating wood species that exist from existing root systems, stumps, and seed. And one of the fascinating things about this approach is that it has proven to be 36 times cheaper per hectare compared to the conventional replanting of trees and species within the ecosystem. And so this regional platform, which is focusing on locally managed ecosystems, has been able to advance and scale up this practice in a number of countries, including Mali and Kenya, to be able to deliver results both in terms of ecosystem restoration, but also enhancing the resilience of livelihoods of farmer communities. So in a nutshell, the results we have seen since 2023, since the implementation of this project or this practice, is that over about 150,000 hectares of land, of degraded land, has been restored across 5 countries in Africa. We've also been able to train over 1,500 farmers on this specific approach for ecosystem management. And out of the 1,500 trained farmers, a third of them are women farmers who are also now at the forefront of ecosystem management and restoration. We've also been able to achieve over 240 tree nursery training of over 240 tree nursery managers to be able to improve the seedling production, but also at the community level, we've seen stronger structures, local level governance structures, through the establishment of ecosystem committees, specifically in Mali, that advance local level governance and restoration. So, like I said, beyond just land restoration, the achievements have really impacted other areas. One of them being the food security and livelihoods of these communities. And so within the restored landscapes, we've seen improved food availability and nutrition for the farming families. We've also seen increased and strengthened climate resilience of those communities, because where tree cover and vegetation is restored, it improves also the soil fertility, it reduces soil erosion and enhances water retention, among others, all of which are very important for climate resilience. The other component I already pointed to is in terms of women's empowerment. And for now, more than one in three of the 1,500 trained farmers are women, and there is very deliberate intention to ensure inclusivity in restoration processes, but also in terms of access to secure land tenure for women. The last one is around community governance and knowledge, specifically through the establishment of community-level committees that ensure the involvement of local voices within restoration priorities. And then the second case that I am going to highlight is work that is happening in Burkina Faso, where we also have a national level multi-stakeholder platform that has been focusing a lot on advancing secure women's land rights, and also going a step further to support those women to manage and plan for the use of their land in a more sustainable way. So just to mention broadly, Burkina Faso also faces challenges of land degradation and climate vulnerability. And the women in that context are very central to food production, land use management, but historically they've been excluded from accessing and owning lands. So without, documentation or inclusion in land documentation, it does not guarantee also their participation in sustainable land management. And so within this context, ILC has been able to work with the local level members or the land sector actors at the national level, but also with other strategic partners like World Bank to be able to support the advancement of secure land tenure for women as a way of facilitating their involvement in land restoration, management, and food production. So in Burkina Faso, we've been able to see some results over the last year in terms of, supporting, first of all, policy reform processes related to agrarian and land reform, the agrarian and land reform laws. And through this reform, we've also seen the issuance of, certificates of ownership to land by women to women. So over 30 women were able to receive certificates of ownership. And that in itself has allowed the women to engage in restoration initiatives and also food production processes. Beyond that, the platform has been, advancing and pushing for the integration of land tenure considerations within climate policies, relevant climate policies, and specifically the nationally determined contributions, where the current NDC 3.0 specifically acknowledges the importance of land rights in enhancing community resilience to climate change and climate adaptation. So I thought these are two cases that would be very relevant for this, just to demonstrate why land rights are important in advancing agroecological transformation. So as I conclude, based on that research and the case studies, there are 12 areas where we are calling for action and transformation within the food systems and agroecology agenda. And very quickly, the first one is around the importance of integrating tenure security into agroecology programs, policies, and practices, because when you look at Africa, for instance, in many countries, there is development of national agroecology policies, but within that, we don't see a lot of integration of land tenure aspects within those processes. So there's really need for advocacy to be able to ensure land issues are integrated. And then the second one is around recognizing and strengthening diverse tenure systems, from customary or collective rights to mobility for, in the case of pastoralists, as important legal protections for such communities. We are also calling for institutionalization of farmers and pastoralists and indigenous organizations as policy partners, because often these constituency groups are excluded from policy processes, and therefore their experiences and voices are not included. 𝗦𝗀𝗀𝗃 calls on alignment of tenure reforms with climate and biodiversity commitments, just to ensure a holistic also approach to addressing climate issues. We call for robust protections that prevent, impacts and land grabbing through the implementation of green projects such as carbon markets, which are more and more prominent in the region, and conservation.
Eva Maria, just
Yes.
a time reminder, 1 minute left.
Okay, very quickly, we are calling for financing to the grassroots level. We are also calling for, sorry, it's my alarm as well, investment in research, redistributive reforms for land governance, strengthening seed systems, among others. So there are 12 of them, and we can share all these calls, but basically I think that brings me to the end of my presentation. So thank you, Tarus, and I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you very much, Eva Maria. Now let's hear about rural women as political subjects in Latin America. Emma will give you further details on that. And after the talks, we will have the possibility to talk to both of our speakers. Emma, the floor is yours.
Sorry, I'm sharing the screen again. Okay. Here. Okay. Can you?
We can see it, yes.
Yes. Well, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you all the organizers for this dialogue, and thank you, Eva Maria, also for this great presentation about the situation in Africa. As Taru said, I'm currently a professor at the master's course on agroecology at the International University of Andalusia in Spain, but I have been working for many times in Latin America, many years. And over the past decade, I worked at FAO in Rome on the Scaling Up Agroecology initiative. So this is a topic that is very close to my heart. I would like to begin by explaining that my perspective is grounded in the development of a feminist approach to agroecology, which we are calling feminist agroecology. The feminist approach to agroecology basically aims to demonstrate how agroecology is an economic alternative, often led by women, or at least based on the activities and values sustained by women, such as an ethic of care of the environment and of the people, and not just a technical proposal for a sustainable food production in general. In this sense, feminist agroecology emerged as an intersection between ecofeminisms, popular peasant feminisms, and decolonial indigenous feminisms, which are grounded in the connection between human life and the life of the earth and nature, transcending the dominant anthropocentrism. So feminist agroecology is built upon the concrete experiences of peasant women and popular and indigenous feminisms. These are practical experiences based on anti- and decolonial worldviews that challenge classism, racism, and Western ethnocentrism. We can say that feminist agroecology advocates for the social and political recognition of rural women and all gender diverse people, both for their collective actions and for their daily work. Its ultimate goal is to ensure greater autonomy for women in various spheres, in families, in the community, in society, in academia, as well as in public policies related to agroecological field. In this presentation, I will talk about the current struggles of rural women in Latin America from two perspectives: as active resistance to this devastating phase of capitalism that we are currently experiencing, an extractive capitalism that destroys living conditions on the planet and operates according to patriarchal and racist logics. And I will also focus on rural women as political subjects who organize themselves internationally within anti-capitalist, anti-racist, and anti-colonial feminist movements, with the strategic proposals that offer a different perspective on the environmental and on the relationships between people. So my aim here is to highlight the transformative political power of these movements. Here I will bring you some examples of grassroots resistance. In Latin America, women are building agroecological projects from the ground up, and these projects focus on alternative approaches to food production and distribution. They are based on soft ecological technologies and oriented toward a solidarity-based and feminist economy. These initiatives draw upon women's traditional knowledge and historical contributions to food production and caregiving from an emancipatory and collective perspective. They advocate for an alternative model of production and consumption in which eating well and enjoying food does not mean an excessive workload for people, and particularly for women. I can cite as an example the campaign for the division of domestic labor promoted in Northeast Brazil by rural women's movements, which argues that domestic work should also be shared between men and women within the home in rural areas. Many women's groups focus their efforts on food production, whether fresh or processed, raising small animals, preserving and acclimatizing species through seed banks or on-farm seed conservation, and passing on knowledge about the production and the use of medicinal plants, to name a few examples. These activities are not socially valued. They are usually considered merely complementary activities to commercial crops, which are seen as more important and normally is the responsibility of men. But for women, they are very important because they guarantee an independent income, mutual support, and effective protection against the multiple violence they suffer. These groups are also motivated by addressing women's mental health, defending their dignity as people, including gender diverse people. They aim to balance equally among work time, learning time, and rest time. This is something that many times we forgot, that women in rural areas also need rest time. And they form alternative solidarity networks, networks of care and support. And they set collective healing as a goal. The motto of many of these groups could be summarized as rebellion with joy. There are many examples of these groups and networks throughout Latin America. We could talk about them for hours. I would also like to discuss the role of these movements in international political struggles. First of all, I would like to mention Brazil. In Brazil, the working group of women in the Agroecology National Society, called ANA, created 20 years ago, has been very important, positioning rural women in the center of the agroecological movement. Another two important articulations of rural women are the Marcha das Margaridas, March of the Daisies, and the group of women and gender diverse people within the MST, the Landless Workers Movement. These movements have been holding large public demonstrations with thousands and thousands of participants to pressure governments to implement public policies that focus on women as protagonists of agroecological initiatives and not merely as family members. It is also important to mention the organization of Afro-descendant women, we call them quilombolas in Brazil, and indigenous women as well, each one of these groups with their own demands. In Latin America, women are organized also within the Scientific Agroecology Society, SOCLA, and the Latin American Agroecology Movement, MAELA. In 2013, it was created the Alliance of Women in Agroecology, AMA-AWA, which has brought together grassroots movements, researchers, and students involved in agroecology. Its aims is to give visibility to women's contributions in all fields of agroecology and fight against discrimination against women. I am part of AMA-AWA, and we are organizing an in-person meeting in Guatemala in May this year. We expected to have about 40 participants from different countries from all Latin America. On a more global level, La Via Campesina and the World March of Women are very important for their advocacy of food sovereignty, social justice, and feminism. The main issues of these movements are the fight against agrochemicals and monoculture farming, such as aerial spraying, with Argentina being a notable example, defending their territories against mining companies, pulp and paper mills called green deserts, large dams, and wind and solar big energy companies. They are fighting also against land grabbing, water grabbing, seed grabbing, and the destruction of biodiversity. The demarcation of indigenous and Afro-descendant lands and for their right to live well without violence. 2 international events were held by these movements in the recent period, featured massive participation by women and feminist proposals. The 3rd Global Forum for Food Sovereignty, called 𝗦𝗀𝗀𝗃, that was held in Sri Lanka in September of last year, organized by 𝗦𝗆𝗃𝗂𝗏 Campesina and the International Planning Committee for Food Sovereignty, with a focus on food sovereignty, agroecology, gender justice, and the defense of people's rights in the face of the multidimensional crisis we are facing. The 2nd International Conference on Agrarian Reform and Rural Development, held in Colombia in February this year, organized by FAO, governments, and social movements. To conclude, I would like to quote here part of the speech given by one of the representatives of the World March of Women, Sara Moreira, at these conferences in Colombia. Our struggle is for our bodies and our territories to be free. That is why we defend and reaffirm popular agrarian reform and agroecology as the only alternative to guarantee food sovereignty and a life free from violence, whether in the countryside or in the city. We know that the climate crisis is part of this model of exploitation. It is the result of the predatory destructions of territories and the commodification of women and nature. Women are on the front lines in the defense of the commons, in the fight against hunger, the lack of water and sanitation, forced displacement, and environmental collapse. If there is no redistribution of land, if small-scale production, which safeguards biodiversity and produces healthy food, continues to be ignored, global crises will remain unresolved. We believe that we, as women, are part of the solution. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, my goal here was to highlight the potential of these movements to challenge the political debates surrounding the multiple crises we are currently facing. As we presented, rural women are building resistance from the ground up, but they are also offering powerful political alternatives that could benefit humanity as a whole. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emma. We've now heard 2 wonderful talks. Thank you very much for both. I would now like to move to the discussion. So if you have questions, please feel free to lift up your hand and just state your question as it is. Since I can't see the chat at the moment when I'm sharing the screen, I would now like to give the word to Anna, who will be moderating the discussion with me. Anna, would you like to take the first question from the chat?
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. So I will select a few questions from the chat to be addressed during the webinar. And we have here a first question for Eva Maria. And this question and a remark. And the question is, in what way is a secure and above all fair income of sub-Saharan farmers contributing to ensuring a more stable and long-term ownership of lands? So then we have a remark, when a farmer earns enough, land is easier available. Therefore, supporting farmers on a secure and fair price for their produce is essential. This enforcing role is particularly important for governments on either side, in sub-Saharan as well as countries that are exported to. So, Eva, can you help us with this question?
Yes, Anna, thanks. I think for Africa, one of the major challenges that farmers have raised is in terms of the fairness of, prices for the produce that they make, especially small-scale farmers who, have a lot of challenges in terms of accessing those markets in the first place, but also getting fair returns for the produce that they sell. And so I think this can play a role in terms of economic empowerment for small-scale farmers that could allow them to acquire land and own land. But also on the flip side, I don't want to assume that this is the only factor that is in play, because when you look at, for instance, the case of women smallholder farmers specifically, I think the challenge is much more complex. And for women smallholder farmers, because of some of the social, cultural barriers and challenges, even the control and access of benefits and proceeds that come from the sale of their produce is often not controlled by the women, it's controlled by the men. And so in that case, women still farm on the land, but at the end of the day, the people who benefit more are not the women themselves. And so in that case, we cannot just make that general assumption that only, enhancing the benefits or the economic component of their produce is sufficient for securing tenure. So we have to be cognizant of the complexity and the other factors that come into play. But of course, governments have been trying to put in place policy measures that could address this issue at regional and continental level. I think in Africa, we have, for instance, the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is trying to really make the markets accessible and prices fair for smallholder farmers across the region. I hope I've responded to the question from Paul. Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much. There is another question for you. Did you also consider restoration of pastoral lands?
Sorry, yes, I've seen that. I think it's from Raf. And
Yes. That's it.
in the context of the work that we do, we are currently doing a lot around pastoral lands, so rangelands, which I think for a long time have not been given visibility in terms of their contribution towards agroecology. And so for ILC, we are at a stage where we are trying to collect and document some evidence and data that could show how pastoralism and their practices like mobility contribute to agroecology or agroecological practices in themselves. Because when you look at rangelands, they do serve as landscapes that are also carbon sinks, and they have some ecological benefits which have for a long time not been acknowledged compared to other landscapes like the forests, and things like that. So rangelands and pastoralism is one of the areas where we are collecting some data, specifically in West Africa. And we hope that with the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists this year, we'd be able to share some concrete evidence and data around how, pastoralism is an agroecological practice itself. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Because this question has a remark and is exactly regarding the degradation of the pastoral lands because of the that was okay. So thank you very much. Now we have another question, but this is not for you, it's for Emma. One of the challenges that women face is that in many cases, women are busy with activities that are essential but have no market value. It is important to start measuring what has no price to make it visible. And then you have a link, so with the you can check the approach, but this is a remark.
Yeah, okay.
Emma, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, this is very, very important, and we are developing some methodologies also to measure this, the time women put on these activities, also the value of the products that or the services that they do in within the family or within the property. In Brazil, we have developed it's called like in Portuguese we called cadernetas agroecológicas. I don't remember. It's like a I don't remember now the exact term in English, but it's a very, very easy process in which a very easy methodology in which women take notes of all the products they produce themselves, and which are the objective of this production. For instance, for self-consumption or family consumption, or for trade, for selling in the market, etc. And then by the end of any a certain period, we can sum up everything that they did, they produced, and put like a price on it, like a regular price based on the markets, etc. So they can have an idea on, because many things they don't sell on the market, but they use for their own consumption in the family. So that's why many times we don't give value to this, and for consequence, you don't see women as a worker. You see only men as worker, because what he does really it's sell in the market, so it's recognized. No, so this is very important for women themselves to self-recognition of their value within the property, because sometimes they only think that they are like spouses or mothers, and not workers, not farmers. So this is part of the problem. But yeah, as I said, sometimes rural women work a lot, and they don't have the recognition of this work. So these policies are if you have policies that focus on women as a subject, as someone, as a citizen that should receive the benefit of what they produce, you are changing a lot within, you're changing the power relation within families, within communities, etc. I don't know if I explained very well, but I I agree with the person who did the question, that who made the question, that yeah, it's very important to talk about this hidden work of women in family farming in general.
Thank you very much. We have another question for Eva, is asking, is there a publication available on this study with recommendations for pastoral land management? Eva.
Yes, the publication is not yet ready. It's in the making right now. We are at the stage where we are collecting data in the 3 focus countries in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. So we are hoping that by sometime in end of May, we should be having some country analysis and data that will now result in sort of a cross-reading of the trends across those 3 countries. So not yet ready now, but it's in the making and will come out once concluded.
Okay, thanks. There is another one for Emma. Could you please provide a link to this idea in Brazil about measuring and valuing the activity of women?
Okay, I will put the link right away. Just a minute.
I cannot see any hand raised. So Taru, I don't know if
yeah, I see a couple of questions. I saw that Samar Boaoni was raising a hand, but there is also a question in the chat. You mentioned that feminist agroecology is rooted in anti- and decolonial worldviews. What are some concrete examples of how these principles are being applied successfully in real farming communities today?
Yeah, just many of these groups that, as I mentioned, are formed by indigenous women and Afro-descendant women in Brazil, and they have, for instance, different ways to cultivate the land, to organize themselves. Many of these experiences are based on collective work that we called mutirões, that people that are together working in a part of the land, and then another day you go to another part of the land, but you work together, and it's like a community system. And usually this is not very well recognized by public policies. For instance, you have financing, you have other support, economic support to individual production, but not for community production. And these groups, they forced the public agencies to recognize these systems that they consider cultural value for them. And so I think this is very important, because our policies in general are based on individuals. And these groups forced public sphere to recognize communities as subjects. And this group formed by rural women, they say, we don't want individual financing. We want something for our group. Because we are used to work together, and our goal is to promote the well-being of our community, and not each one by itself, no. So I think this is some. These are principles that came from a different culture, not a white culture, not this individual society that we are. We know in the cities in most of our countries. And so it's different. It's complicated also for the feminist movement to accept this, because sometimes we in the rural, in the urban areas, we are used to focus on women as an individual also. And we don't think that we should have, or we could have, more communitary experiences, because we don't live this in the cities. It's complicated. So I think it's very interesting to, and also with the indigenous peoples, they are very many values, different values, like the respect for ancestrals, or the respect for their own religion, that are not, many times this is not recognized by the public spheres, no? And so these women again forced us also to understand that they act differently because of their values, and they deserve respect for that. So I hope I have replied.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you. I think I still see a couple of questions. It might be that we are not able to go through exactly every question today, because we are soon running out of time. But I would still like to pick a double question from the chat. This may be for both of you. It's addressed to Emma, but I think it can come to the both of you. What is the role of male farmers and male people in general in these initiatives? Are they among promoters, among followers, or not much involved? And maybe Emma, you can give an answer from perspective of Latin America, and Eva Maria, if you could give an African perspective.
Emma, do you want to go first, or should I
No,
go?
please, go you.
Yeah, so the role of male farmers in all this, I think the emphasis we've made throughout is the importance of inclusion, and indeed for us to be able to achieve transformation, for us to be able to achieve inclusivity, we need all actors and players. And so at the local level, especially, the role of men is very key, since they play a key role also in food production. And like I mentioned before, for the African context, the female, of course, the women do a lot of work in terms of producing, in terms of tilling the land, but often it's the men who benefit more. The same applies when it comes to access to ownership and control of land and resources. So mostly within local level communities, the system is very patriarchal, and men are the ones who, have ownership of these resources in their hands. And so men have a role in terms of, shifting mindsets and attitudes in terms of involvement of women and youth and other vulnerable groups within a community, and advancing the inclusivity and participation that we need within the governance systems at different levels. So I think for me, that is what I would say from our perspective.
Yeah. Well, I agree with Eva, and I think that I was reading some comments on the chat, but it's very quickly. So sorry if I don't understand well, but I think that some people are understanding that or are assuming that a feminist perspective is against men, and it's not. It's just that we are proposing that women have to be seen as protagonists too, protagonists with. So it's not the secondary group of people. We are talking about rural women that knows what they are doing. So we have to provide, we have to support these women. And they are also organizing themselves to make their voices to listening. So I think what we have to do is to support these women in their struggles. And I'm sure that agroecology could also be a way to support these women, but we have to intentionally decide to do that. And that's why we think that it's important to say that we are feminist. We are feminist in this sense, that we are supporting these women to be protagonists in all spheres. And so I think that's what we can propose to think after the webinar.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you, Eva Maria. I think you have both given us a lot of food for thoughts. I hope you all who've been listening have gotten good ideas. And there are a couple of links in the chat, so please have a look before you leave the conversation if there is something that you want to read more on. And do remember that we now have the community of practice on the agroecology TPP. And once you get connected there, the discussions can then also continue over there. So I welcome you all to join the community of practice. I would very much like to thank our excellent speakers for wonderful talks today. Thank you so much for being with us. And I hope we can also get you back as listeners and maybe for another talk later on in the conversations. I would also like to thank the task group and the AGES team for organizing the conversation and for all of you for being here. Thank you for being so active once again. Our next conversation will be at the end of April, and then we will be focusing on the principle of biodiversity. So hopefully many of you will be joining there as well. If you have comments, topic suggestions, speaker suggestions, please feel free to be in contact with us. We would love to hear from you, and we look forward to seeing you again in 1 month's time. Thank you very much.